Hey guys, so this is my Flame Reave build. How to play this build is just use Surge into the enemy pack and just spam Flame Reave. And that's basically it. That's how the build works. You can use Flame Ward for survivability and added flame damage, or fire damage rather. And just spam Mana Strike whenever you are on low mana. So let's get into it. So these are my 5 skills. We'll start with the main one, the Flame Reave. What I did is I put 4 points in Dancing Flames, 1 point in Rhythm of Fire, 2 points for Catalyst of Ash, 1 point in Frenzied Flame, 1 point on Rolling Thunder, 4 points on Heat Wave, 4 points on Arcane Severance, 3 points for Precise Destruction for the base crit of Flame Reave. And that's it for this one. We use Catalyst of Ash as a support skill. Let's get into that. So whenever our Flame Reave hits an enemy, there's 8% chance to cast Fireball. And what I did is I put 1 point on Piercing Heat, 5 points on Immolated Core for the fire and lightning penetration, 4 points on Conflagration, 4 points on Flammability for the fire resistance shred. Now, all the extra points you can just put anywhere you want. It doesn't matter. I put mine on Spreading Inferno, 4 points in here, and 2 points on Wildfire. Next is Flame Ward. I put 2 points in Stalwart Defense, 1 point on Desperate Defense, 1 point on Astonish to cast Flame Ward when stunned, 2 points in Fuel the Flames, 1 point on Dual Aegis for the +1 charge, 3 points in Dilation, 5 points on Infusion for the increased fire damage, 250%, 2 points on Barrier, and 3 points on Prismatic Buffer. Next is Enchant Weapon. This will be our major damage boost for Flame Reave, so we want to get this as high of an uptime as possible. So I put 4 points on Concentration, 1 point on Desperation since Flame Reave does have a high mana cost, and we can get extra damage from that missing mana. 4 points on Efficacy, 1 point on Kindling Blade to automatically recast Enchant Weapon, 5 points in Celerity for the increased attack speed, and 5 points in Molten Steel. Now the last one is Surge, which is our movement skill, and also we can also cast Flame Reave here. So I put 1 point on Jolt, 2 points on Storm Battery, 1 point on Flaming Surge, and 1 point on Pyroclasm for the Flame Reave on arrival, 5 points on Storm Aegis, 5 points on Shielding Efflux, and 5 points in Long Strider. Now, since the Fireball is cast on hit, we can add another extra skill, which is Mana Strike. This can also be Focus if you want the Mana Burst, but preferably I use Mana Strike because it synchronizes with another passive skill that we have. So next is we are going to take a look at the passive skill tree. So there's no points in Sorcerer. We have 30 points in Mage. I put 1 point on Elementalist, 1 point in Arcanist, 5 points in Mage Flurry, 10 points in Knowledge of Destruction to get the critical strike chance and the crit multiplier, 1 point on Reactive Ward, and 5 points on Warden. As much as possible, we want to have high ward retention since we will be getting ward on hit with this build, so we would like as high of a ward retention as possible. And next for the Spellblade, I put 6 points in Elemental Affinity, 8 points in Infused Weapon, 2 points in Arcane Warden, 5 points in Arcane Shielding, 5 points in Essence Duel, 5 points in Mana Reaver. This will be our sustain for the Flame Reave since it gives us 10 mana gain. although it is only a 30% chance to gain mana whenever we hit something, but we still need this. 1 point in Gemini, 8 points in Prismatic Blade, 10 points in Volca's Razor, 5 points in Mental Fortitude, 8 points in Outrun and Outlast. You need to get this at least 8 points to get the increased cooldown recovery for Surge, since we will be spamming Surge and Flame Reaves to get a much faster clearing. And you can see the Surge has a 2.3 cooldown. Next is the Burden of Knowledge. We get this one because we never use cast speed, since we are using attack speed for Flame Reave and all of our other skills. And you can get the 20 spell damage, which is a damage boost for our Flame Reave because of the Arcane Severance, which adds melee damage based on your added spell damage, which is good. Next is the items. Here are my items. You don't need these uniques. The only mandatory unique that you need is the Sun Wreath. The Sun Wreath with the lowest Flame Reave mana cost, as if possible, since Flame Reave has high mana cost, and having this as low as possible will give you more time to spam Flame Reave and lesser time to regen your mana. So let's start with the helmet. I've used this one mainly because of the base, the 62% of mana spent gain a sword, and the increased mana regen. The affixes are, the prefix are bricked, so you can add anything you want on the prefix. These ones you don't need. I just need the suffix one and the implicits for this helmet. So this is a very flexible build. You can do pretty much anything you want for it. So yeah, there are still room for improvements for this build. Next is the amulet. What we want for our build is mainly mana regeneration, since Flame Reave does have high mana cost again, as I've said. So we get mana regeneration, and also we need the increased area for area skills to get as much area for the Flame Reave. You can only get this affix, the area skills, for the amulet and the gloves, so you need to prioritize on that. Then we just get resistances. So for the weapons, you can use any crystal sword you want. You can use this one, Hacker's Phoenix, because of the great implicits like the melee damage, the plus critical strike chance, and the increased movement speed, which are all beneficial for our build since we are going fast and we want faster clearing. What we only get from this weapon is the 16 melee fire damage for you and your minions, and the 200% increased melee damage and the fire penetration. Everything else is not being used for our build. Now, if you don't have this one, you can just use your traditional crystal sword with a high roll implicit. As much as possible, we want 90%, at least 90% increased melee elemental damage, and at least 12 to 13% melee attack speed. So this one I use because it has a tier 6 melee attack speed, and I crafted a plus 5% melee critical strike chance. The suffixes for the crystal sword are negligible. You can have anything you want. The ideal ones would be chance to shred armor on hit, and chance to apply frailty on hit. Those are the best suffixes that we can use for the crystal sword. Now, if you have Eye of Rain, you can use this as substitute for the Crystal Sword. This will be focusing more on Ignite chance and Ignite stacking, which is also pretty good. You can stack pretty much around 30 to 40 ignites per second if you want to do that. But for me, I am focusing more on crit, which is why I use these two. This one is pretty powerful, even though most of the stats are not being used in our build, so there's that. Next is the armor. I'm using an Urzel's Pride legendary armor. This one gives immensely, not immensely, but it gives around 5 mana regen. Yeah, it gives around 5 mana regen per second, which is a good thing. But if you don't have this one, you can use any armor as long as you can use the +3 Flame Reave if you have one, or the +2 one, and you can add some vitality and resistance into that. It all depends on you, actually. If I think there's an armor with a base that I think it's this one. Yeah, you can also use this one as a base for the mana spent gain as ward and the ward retention, since we do need ward for our build. But for me, I'm using this one since it gives much more sustain to spam my build. But you can pretty much use anything you want. You can use +3 Flame Reave and just add Rolling Flames and Ashen Waste to the skill tree, since it does give 30% more range, which is a big deal for clearing, and the crit multiplier, since we always do crit a lot. So next is the gloves. As I've said, we need area. Increase area for area skills for gloves, and critical strike chance base if possible. The increased melee attack speed, it depends. If you have high mana regen, I suggest you get that. But if you don't have high mana regen, you can replace that with either int or dexterity or anything that benefits the build. Next is boots. So what we need for this build is the highest cooldown reduction speed as possible, so that we can have 100% uptime on our enchant weapon. I got a T6 increased cooldown recovery speed for my boots, which is a big deal. And for the belt, I also got increased cooldown recovery speed, which brings my cooldown of enchant weapon to 10.3 seconds. And since we did put 4 points here, there's a 1.3 second downtime for enchant weapon. So if you can get this 100% uptime, the better. Next is the scroll, the relic. I've used this one because it has a good void resistance, and the implicit is mana spent gain as ward again. You can also put mana regen in here as a prefix. You can also put, I think, mana regen in here as a prefix if you don't want the increased melee attack speed. And yeah, that's it for my equipments. And next, for the idols. What I use for the idols is increased fire damage, and it doubles when you have over 300 max mana. So I also spec some to get as high of a mana as possible, so I can get the double fire damage. This one is the ideal. It's the ideal one for our build. If you can get 2 of these, increased melee elemental damage and increased fire damage, the better. It will give a huge damage boost. So this is the other idols that I have. And this one is is what brought my mana to 300. The 5% increased mana and plus 24 mana. If you cannot find the mana affix for these made grand and ornate idols, you can use them, or you can use the small ones to get your mana up to 300. And that's basically it. Here is the character sheet. As you can see, I have 22 mana regen. If you can get this up to 25 to 30, that's better, so you don't have to spam mana strike too much. And yeah, I have negative 15 cast speed, but it doesn't matter since we only use melee attack speed. My critical strike chance is around 34, but since we have the plus 6 in here, so it's 40% melee critical strike chance, which is good. And yeah, if you can get your melee damage and your fire damage as high as possible, you can scale it up and be able to do more damage to the enemies. That would be great. And yeah, that's basically it. If you can get your cooldown recovery speed much higher than this, that would also be good, as it would affect everything in your skill, especially the surge and the enchant weapon. So that's it for this build, guys. I'll attach a gameplay video at the end of this, after this, and if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions on how to make the build much stronger, just leave it in the comment section below. Thanks, guys. See ya. Hey guys, so this is my Flame Reave build.